time that you're deciding whether or not to get a flu shot, this may impact your decision. So take a look at it. I'm not giving you medical advice whatsoever, just sharing the conversation. You guys tell me what your thoughts are.
In a million years, I would not take the flu shot. And I'll tell you why, because this is what Cochrane and BMJ have found. People who take the flu shot are protected against that strain of flu. They're 4.4 times more likely to get a non-flu infection. And you might find, and a lot of people do, that they get the flu shot and then they get sick.
That has happened to a lot of people. A lot of people. Matter of fact, it's almost to the point where we've accepted it. We've accepted it. But what he's going to say next may or may not surprise you. But I just want to go back maybe 10 seconds just so you guys hear it again.
They're 4.4 times more likely to get a non-flu infection.
So people that what he's saying is that people that take the flu shot, you are 4.4 more times likely to get something else that is not the flu because you're compromising your immune system.
And you might find, and a lot of people do, that they get the flu shot and then they get sick. They're usually not getting the flu. They're getting something that is indistinguishable from the flu because the flu shot gives you something called pathogenic priming. It injures your immune system so that you're more likely to get a non-flu viral upper respiratory infection. In fact, the Pentagon published a story, and you can cite this, it's by Wolfe, W-O-L-F-E, in January of this year, in which they said that the flu shot not only primes you for flu, but it primes you for coronavirus. If you get, they gave flu, they had a placebo group and they had a vaccine group because they wanted for military readiness to see if the flu shot was prophylactic against coronavirus. What they found is actually the people who got the flu shot were 36% more likely to get coronavirus. And that's not a lone study. We found 6 other major studies that say the same thing. If you get the flu shot, you're more likely to get coronavirus. You know,
so that's just something for you guys to decide for yourself. I don't know. And this is the thing. Why, when we look at these things, like, we got to understand whose side we're on. We got to understand it's almost like what Quee says. Follow the money. The flu shot may be perfectly safe. It may be perfectly safe. I just realized that I'm crooked over here a little bit, but it may be perfectly safe. However, I think it's good for us to understand that big pharma, the same big pharma companies, the same people that have ownership in a lot of these big pharma companies, those are a lot of the same donors that are funding a lot of these politicians and encouraging them to push things one way or another. Those are the people with a lot of money. How else are they able to get their messaging out? They look at it as just sales reps. They look at a lot of our politicians as sales reps, these big pharmaceutical companies, as their marketers that are going to go out and push the messaging, push people to go get shots, to normalize it, The same people that will never tell you how to get healthy, the same people that will never tell you what herbs to take, the same people that will never encourage you to go get sunlight during 2020, those same people are the ones that are going to say, oh yeah, you should get a flu shot. Matter of fact, hold on. Speaking of flu shots, take a look at this other video, because this, don't hear it from me. Hear it from a nurse. Hear it from this nurse whistleblower. I want y'all to hear this. I wasn't even going to play this video. Take a look at this video and you tell me if you have the same thoughts on it. What I'm saying is just open up your eyes. Just stop. We live in such a herd mentality. Just open up your eyes, use common sense, and do some independent free thinking for yourself, aside from all the influences, aside from the people that you love and trust, aside from what they're doing. Just think for yourself for one moment and maybe take heed to what people who are blowing the whistle on a lot of these things are saying, rather than just the people that benefit financially who are telling you about the product.
And information that you're going to want to hear. So go right ahead, Tina. Tell us what you've learned.
Okay. Since the Affordable Care Act came out, we are now, as nurses, required to ask every single patient when they come to the hospital if you've had your flu vaccine or your pneumococcal vaccine. If you say no to either one of those, in the computer an order will generate that says we need to give you this vaccine. We don't need to speak to a doctor. It's hospital policy. It's now health department policy that we now have to give you the vaccine. Even if you came to the hospital with a stub toe, you will be offered both vaccines if you meet requirements, which just about everybody meets requirements for flu vaccine. And most people over the age of 65 will meet the pneumococcal vaccine. Even if you come to the hospital with a stub toe, you are going to be given this vaccine. You have the right to say no. If you say no, they just check it off as refused. This was never like this years ago. This is a new thing.
And tell me what we were discussing before about surgery and your admission that you hadn't had these recent vaccines. Tell me about this protocol, because I don't think that people.
Yo, listen to this. This is wild.
People that are not aware of this.
When you go to the hospital, if you need surgery, you need a knee replacement surgery. First, they're going to ask you if you've had the vaccines. You're going to say no. Mm-hmm. Then they're going to say, well, you need to sign this consent. If you're going to have if you're going to have surgery, you need to sign a consent. In the consent, there's a word called biogenics. If you sign the consent saying, I consent for you to give me biogenics, that basically means that they can give you anything that they deem necessary, including vaccines. So if you say you didn't get a flu shot, it's flu season, and you sign the consent that says, I agree to biogenics, they will give you a vaccine even when you're under anesthesia.
They will give you a vaccine even when you're under anesthesia. Now, like I said, I haven't, or let me be clear in saying it. I haven't looked into this, but I'm also not surprised by it. Just hearing it, I would believe it. I'm going to look into, matter of fact, I'll look into it and we'll touch base on it on Wednesday or Friday. But think about this. I mean, you know what's so funny? Depending on who's in office usually determines on like our trust for the overall government. Depending on who's in office, right? Depending on who we're rooting for. If we're Trump fans, then we'll sit here and say, oh, we love or actually, no, I can't even say that, because Trump fans are saying we're going to drain the swamp, get rid of the government, destroy whatever. But I guess what I'm really trying to say is that a lot of people that have complained about the government, I've heard people on the Democratic side complain about the government, especially when it comes to black people. Distrust the government, complain about the government, talk about Tuskegee and those experiments that were going on, the syphilis, all these different things. But then when it comes to certain instances now, oh, because we're in 2025 or because it's 2020, we just completely trust what they're saying. And this is why fear is so important. This is why in 2020, they had to scare us to death, literally. Scare us to death, literally. Show us the bodies that are being wheeled out of the hospitals. Show us all these things and put these things in front of our face, knowing that that fear would kill just as many people, more or less, you decide, than anything, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, than the actual disease. The fear. And it's either, and even if it doesn't do that, then what does it do? It makes you feel like, oh, I got to go get this vaccine. I got to go get it. And, oh, I can't even go to a restaurant or I'm going to lose my job. Yeah, I'm definitely going to go get it. They had to create a certain level of fear and urgency so that we would just accept these things and not look into them. And it's the same thing when it comes to the flu shot. We've just normalized completely a lot of these things. We don't know the impact that it has on our bodies. We don't know anything about them. When we take our flu shot, we're not reading that fine print to understand what's actually going on. When we go to the hospital and have surgery, we're not reading that. What do they sit down? Have y'all ever had surgery before? You sit down and it's like, oh, what is this? And you actually read it and it's like, oh, well, you just have to sign this as a waiver that you actually may die while getting this surgery because you're under anesthesia. If you've ever had surgery, then I'm sure you're well aware of that. It says that type of stuff, but we don't look at the fine print and we'll just, it's like, all right, well, we trust these doctors, right? Oh, well, everybody else has signed the same paper, right? All right, I'll sign it. We have a herdish mentality,
You already signed the consent.
So you might not even know you received the vaccine.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Shout out to Uncle Brother in the building. Refused.
They may tell you at the end, oh, by the way, you're now covered. You got the flu vaccine or you got the pneumococcal vaccine. But 2 people now have reported to me last week saying that they got the vaccine, they did not want the vaccine. They didn't know that word biogenics meant that they're going to get a vaccine, because vaccine falls under the title of biogenics. It's new terminology that I myself just realized. So
This is profound.
This is
So how can people, with your insight, protect themselves from being vaccinated against their wishes?
You can, when you sign consent for surgery, you can specifically say no vaccines. I don't want this. Like, you can write an initial after what you say you do not want, and they have to honor that. And if they don't honor it, they can be sued.
Right. So we do need to be educated to protect ourselves.
Correct.
So anytime you go to the hospital,
Yes.
you should be aware of their policies.
Oh, absolutely.
And you said it was bio.
You ever just ask yourself simple questions like, why is the government allowing this stuff? Like, why should you be able to go into a hospital, have a surgery that has absolutely nothing to do with flu-like symptoms or anything like that, but because it's during flu season, they can inject you with the flu vaccine? Like, why would our government allow that? This is why RFK Jr. is hated once again. It's so funny how we sit here and, like I said, going back to Bernie Sanders, this country's turning into an oligarchy. When was this country not an oligarchy? When did the rich and powerful people not control everything? Now Elon's just in front of the camera now. When did rich people not control these things? It has happened, I would assume, since the beginning of our government. Wealthy, powerful people have always run this country, not the politicians that serve as puppets and pawns for the wealthy people to push their particular agenda. Let's just be honest.
Biogenics?
The word biogenics is now being used. In the past, it used to be a consent that basically said we could give you blood products if we feel you need it. We could give you, other medications if we feel you need it. But now with the word biogenics, it's now including vaccines.
Profound. Thank you so much for sharing your truth with us, because this is information that's absolutely going to be saving lives and making a big difference. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yo, shout out to her. We need to be celebrating these people. These are real life heroes that are saving lives, saving us from a lot of health complications, and calling a lot of this BS out to at least prevent them from, because everything's a slippery slope, right? If they're allowing this type of stuff, then what's going to be happening 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, if these type of things are not exposed? That's why I'm happy that we're living in the times where a lot of this stuff is being exposed. I hope the JFK stuff comes out. I hope the MLK stuff comes out. I hope the RFK stuff comes out. And even though that may cause some significant issues in the country, some infighting, people being exposed, I don't care. It has to come out. It has to come out, because truth is the only level of accountability that we'll have. Other than that, we're just placing blind trust in people that I don't think that we should be trusting, because a lot of them are just in position because they want to leverage, they want to gain power. And then once they get the power, they leverage their power and influence based on how they can line their pockets from people that are just giving them money to push certain things one way or another. So that's just my stance. I may be completely wrong. It's all good. It's all good. All right, so let's move on to this next video.